This is the OBAs podcast, the King's podcast. Yo, let's talk about mushrooms. So I heard you in the sauna one day talk about your psychedelic experiences. So let me start with, when was the last time you had a trip?
I can't even remember. It's been quite some time now. Like, it's been a few months.
A few months?
Yeah.
Yeah. And was it a mushroom trip? Was it
mushroom trip? Yeah.
Yeah. So I am very interested in mushroom trips because the last time I had one, this was probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was about 4 grams, which most people would consider enough for a lift off.
Yeah.
And it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. So what would you consider good pointers to kind of guide in your trip? To, some people say they have bad trips, some people have good trips. And for me, I would say my trip started as a bad trip. So when I took the 4 grams, I took it in a smoothie. It was a blended smoothie. For like the first 30 minutes, nothing. And then I just felt a wave. Yeah. And for the first 1 minute of that wave, I was almost panicking. Yeah. Yeah. And eventually I kind of settled into it, and then it became better, but it was just me and my buddies goofing around. Yeah. And none of us knew any better. Yeah. So what would you consider a good approach to having these experiences?
I think for me, I've got into it using it to heal. So it was all for healing purposes, not necessarily for pleasure. Yeah. I think set and setting is really important. Trusting the medicine. So anytime people are asking, I would say, like, if you're going to take a large dose, take a small dose prior, so then you can trust in the medicine. Okay. So the mushroom, my beliefs is that there's wisdom coming through it. So if you take a small dose and just kind of always offer gratitude for what's going to come through you. Because for whatever reason, there's so much wisdom in it that if you test it first, trust in it that, okay, nothing bad happened. Then when you take a larger dose, trust that anything coming through is meant for you. So whether we call a bad trip, often they feed off the energies that are within us. So if we have trauma or life experiences, it may not come out in that memory, but the fear or the emotions will arise. And that's where trusting in it, that this is serving a purpose, it's releasing it, it's giving me guidance. And then there can be light days too, or light emotions, like it will fluctuate sometimes. But more is making sure you're in a safe space with people that are safe and you trust your medicine, and then you can flow through the darkness and all the scary things that arise, and then afterwards integrating whatever came up. So like having a thought, sometimes I keep a journal next to me when I've gone through them, because strange things, like I had one journey where I was in a circus and there was things all around me and things are hitting me and I'm like trying to get out, and it kept repeating, you bring the circus to your own life. And I was like, I need to get out, and it just kept saying, you're bringing the circus. And when I finished and integrated or like thought about everything, I was like, my life is, people are in it that don't serve me well, that are causing me stress, and I brought it myself. And that's what I hadn't seen it until it was shown to me in that manner of like stuck in a circus.
I think that's another important piece, which is integrating your experience. So do you recommend doing that, whether you consider it a good trip or a bad trip? And would you say a bad trip is a reflection of maybe something that might be off in maybe what you're doing, or something you need to figure out?
Because anything that's meant to come through, it's waiting, and the mushroom just opens your heart to it. Because I find mushrooms are very heart medicine, and so I've experienced where I took 1 gram and it was hours of suffering. And when I was done, I was like, man, this is enough. And then I've taken 4 or 5 grams and nothing. And I'm like, I just feel light and ease. And that's when I stopped kind of doing them. Is like, I was like, okay, I think I've kind of passed where I've needed this medicine, because it's not bringing up all the stuff that it used to. And now it's just ease. And then what am I doing that for? Like, I already have pleasure in my life. So this isn't is needed tool for me.
Yeah. How important is where you are in life before doing a trip? Like, cause I do believe that it's important to integrate, like to take back, and maybe sometimes your trips can give you pieces of information that you're blindsided to, and then you actually benefit from it. But if I'm in a bad space, and like maybe I just broke up, would you recommend, like if I'm in an obviously bad place physically, would you recommend still trying to have like a trip? And because to me that would seem like a recipe for disaster.
It would be the intention behind it.
Okay.
I believe that, like, to me, any psychedelic is medicine, and there's teaching behind it. So if someone's using it to escape, I would never recommend it, because you're not going to numb it out.
Yeah.
It's going to bring everything up. And if you're not in the mental space to be like, you're like just trying to forget about, what just happened, you won't. And then it can cause further trauma. And then it can put you into a space where you're worse off than you were prior.
It probably shouldn't be an escape.
No, I never.
Because you're not gonna get the escape you think you're looking for,
and you're re-traumatizing yourself.
Yeah, it might bring it right to your forefront.
Yeah.
Which then begs me to ask, so I think with mushrooms, the intensity of the trip that you get is not so heavy. Have you done anything heavier? And by that I mean maybe DMT.
I haven't tried DMT. I've considered for years. I started getting into psychedelic therapy with the thought of going to ayahuasca and just really unraveling some deep stuff. But I don't have the calling anymore. Like, there's not this urge. Yeah, so I haven't gone deeper to like DMT or peyote or any of those.
Is that something you have on the bucket list, quote unquote? And I'm asking because I want to. So I've never tried ayahuasca, and one of the reasons is because of the experience that I got from mushrooms. Yeah. Like, to me, it was quite intense, like what I experienced from mushrooms. And based on people's experiences, what I hear from ayahuasca is that it's more immersive than mushrooms. And
I think it's all the intent. Is, do you want to heal? Do you have big things that you need healing? Or is it just for the experience? And in using those, Yeah,
but so you say that though, and in my head, there's a curiosity part, which is not specifically about healing, that just makes me want to do it because I want to experience what it feels like.
But the only thing keep in mind is you'll never be who you were prior. So are you ready?
It's going to change me.
You'll always change after a journey. And it may be just subtle things. Something like ayahuasca, though, it's life-changing, where people, have left their careers, have left the whole life they created and changed everything. And so it's, are you ready to take that step? Because there's always... It's not like just smoking pot here and there. It's, are you ready to say goodbye to this version of you and become something different? So
I feel the how heavy it is, which is why I haven't done it. So how, like you said, you don't feel the calling to do it. So that's also what I haven't. So I know that it's something I would like to experience, but I also know that it's spiritual. I know that it's not, for lack of a better term, it's not normal. It's not something I can just walk into with
walk away the same.
So I know that I would walk away from it with almost like a spiritual awakening, whatever that is in my journey. But I'm also am I ready for it?
I know. And some of the teachers that I listen to and talk with, they talk about you're going into another realm. Like with ayahuasca, you're opening your energetic self to different dimensions. And whether people believe that or not, if we think of us as all energy, we can take energy back with us. And I've heard stories of people going on these journeys and coming back and being in deep psychosis, being violent and angry where they weren't before. And so it's, what did they bring back? And then they have to go back into it and have like a shaman or someone guide and remove that energy or entity that attached to them. So it gets like in the psychedelic world, it gets let's talk about this dimension piece, because I want to get into it a little bit.
Do you think, because I think about it like a different space, you know how we actually live in this world, and we have access to this world. So I feel like the psychedelic realm is basically like its own realm, and just like you said, but I haven't explored it to the extent of thinking about it as energies from that realm attached to you maybe in some way, and then maybe you need to go back and have someone guide you through maybe removing that energy or getting something better or a different energy to stick onto you. But when I had mushroom trip, it kind of felt something like that, where it's like I felt like I was going to a space that I didn't exactly know or understand the rule set of how it works. And it did feel like certain things were looking at me, and certain beings or whatever were kind of like pulling, like, are you compatible with me? You know how like in this world we like go about our day to day and we're meeting people, and you're more or less in conversating with people, you're just trying to find out like, do we have similar values? Do we have the same energy? Do we have a middle ground? And it kind of felt that way, in that like some beings or whatever were kind of trying to latch on to me, and we're basically trying to pull them like, oh, can you mingle with me, or would you be receptive to me, that kind of thing.
That's kind of interesting and spooky at the same time.
Yes. But it's just like, it's one of those, in a weird way, I don't know how to explain it, but that is one of the things I felt from my mushroom trip that I feel like I don't understand, which is making me hesitant to go deeper to like maybe like an ayahuasca experience. Because I'm like, what exactly is happening in these realms? Because it's not nothing.
No, it's something, and it's something you can only talk with people who've experienced it. Because when you talk to someone who's never used psychedelics or had that experience, then they're just like, whatever. I smoke pot, I never experienced that. But anyone who's done mushroom journeys or different kind of medicines, they've all experienced like there's energies out there, and there's, that other dimension of life.
Okay. I mean, how often, and do you even think about it as something that should be like a schedule? Like, do you think about how frequently or infrequently you use psychedelic substances, or you basically alter your physical state of being?
What do you mean by alter? Do I think when I should alter, or?
Okay, so this is what I mean. So I'm like, do you try to take mushrooms every 3 months, every 6 months, or do you not even think about it in that way?
I don't even think about that, because I use it for like healing. Often it's been, and it was for about 4 years. I went through a really dark time where every day was like, you get through today, one more day, 1 foot over the next. And that's where I was using it quite frequently, because I could feel the effects of, okay, it's getting easier to get going every day. It's when there's a block in my body that's beyond my knowing, that instead of turning to like friends or people for advice, I'm like, I have the wisdom in me. Like, I trust that I have my whole life, that the knowledge is here. I need to go inward and find the answers. And so, sometimes it could be 3 times in a month. Other times, 6 months, nothing. And it's just when I need to find the answers to something I can't just come up consciously with.
Okay, that's interesting. So you more or less use it as you wait for your body to give you a cue to when you need it, or maybe what you're going through as a cue. And the reason why I ask that is because in my world a little bit, some people in martial arts use it, they do like a micro dosing, almost like say every day. And the idea behind that is that they believe that the little bit of a better state that they're in with the micro doses allows them to assimilate better. So maybe when we're doing training, when we're drilling, it's almost like a sixth sense for them. And then for those people, it's like they have it on like a schedule, and it's like maybe 0.2 milligrams every day for maybe a week, and then cycle off another week. So some people have like routines and stuff where
and in training that makes sense, because in training everything is on like a schedule, because you've got a goal you want to meet. And that's really good, because it does open you up to being more aware. Like, you gain that sixth sense. So if you're training and you're working and interacting with bodies in martial arts, then having that, like, you've got an open heart and you're just more aware.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense they would use it. And to overcoming the physical thoughts, because we live in a world where it's a negative, and it's always like, you know, if maybe you see a competitor that is a little bit better versed in something. When you're on mushrooms, you're like, he may be versed in that, but whatever the medicine does, it gives you the confidence to be like, but I know me, and I know how I can match that and overcome it.
Yeah. One key thing, which is kind of similar to what you're saying, is that people who do that claim that it melts their ego more, and then allows them to actually. Yeah. So because usually when we drill, when we're rolling, you always end up, if you're good or not good, someone is usually smashing you. Yeah. So in those moments where you're suffering, I can see how being on some sort of micro dose kind of allows you to ease into it and maybe actually learn from it the way you're supposed to, rather than just allowing your maybe confidence or your self-image to get in the way. And because we have like, you know, belts and like, a white belt or a blue belt and like, you know, different ranks. There's so many things that happens in my mind, I know, when I'm at the gym, that, and for me, I fight that with being high. Yeah. So I like to like smoke cannabis before my training, and it eases me a little bit. Yeah. And it stops my mind from racing. It allows me to ease up, because in a weird way, I'm also like socially awkward. Yeah. Me too. So I'm always a mess when I get to the gym, but I really find that when I smoke, and so I don't smoke too much, it goes a long way. Yeah. But I think about that in like extending that to mushrooms. Like, maybe that could help me, but it's just one of those things that I look at and like, oh, this, I got to explore this. I got to understand myself better and see how these substances work for me, and decide if this is something I want to incorporate or not. Yeah. I think I'm very pro psychedelics. Yeah. And like you said on the ego, dissolving the ego some. Ego gets us where we want to go. It's really good. But when we get there, in order to learn, we need to not be defensive. And when our ego kicks in, then we get defensive. So if you're rolling and stuff, you need to be able to learn, and the ego can't be there. No. It's got to be open. Yeah. I really, really do appreciate your time. Thank you for making time from work in the middle of your day.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Yeah, to come here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you. Thanks. People, to support this podcast, if you want, order the best pepper in the business from Pepper Them. Yes, Sea Spice Pepper Them. I'll put the link somewhere. And for bracelet, things around your arm. Bye, people.
Is it your company, the pepper?
No, it's actually, the pepper is my wife's company. Yes, it's my wife's company. This is the OBAS podcast, the King's podcast.